The truth is that life has never been silent when someone chooses to sow pain into you. People think they are only throwing a few stones to satisfy themselves. But you know better than anyone that those stones do not disappear. They lie still like the foundation of a house they themselves are living in. And now every wall in that house is trembling, as if every decision they once placed on you is turning back to bite their own heels. You stand there, not shouting, not swearing, not fighting back, only watching life do what it always does when truth is not honored. It turns the wheel and returns the exact debt someone tried to send into your soul. Psalm 37:4 once said, "Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." The desire of your heart was never the downfall of anyone else. You only wanted peace, but peace was exactly what they tried to take from you. They thought your struggle would help them stand a little taller, as if pulling you down was the only way they could feel worthy. They never knew that the peace of the chosen is not a gift they can touch. That peace comes from a deeper place, where light does not tremble before slander, where strength does not depend on whether someone understands you. And because of that, when they throw stones at you, those stones do not strike you. They fall into their own lives, little by little. You are the one who learned how to stand still when misunderstood. Stand still when shaped into a story that is not yours. Stand still when lies run through the faces that once acted friendly. That stillness is not weakness. It is an invisible declaration that you know where you belong. Your image is like a lighthouse rising through the fog. You do not chase any ship. You do not hold on to anyone drifting away. You do not shout to be believed innocent. You simply stand there shining as yourself. The ships that choose to crash into the rocks do not do so because your light is unclear, but because in their hearts, they do not want to see the true direction. Life always repays its debts in its own way. It does not send an invoice with words. It does not warn with signs. It rearranges the objects in the room of those who sow harm, so every corner they walk into feels tight, breathless, uneasy. The things they once did to you now become a mirror placed in their kitchen, their bedroom, their dreams. They fear you. But what truly shakes them is their own reflection. This is not the pain they hoped you would receive. This is the pain they created but lack the courage to face when it returns with their own face. There is something you need to recognize. From the very first moment they chose to hurt you, their destiny shifted. Not because you are so important that anyone who touches you is punished, but because you live in truth, and truth has its own way of punishing what is not like it. When they accused you of things you did not do, when they turned your stumble into entertainment for others, they were signing an agreement without reading the terms. The term is simple. Whatever you send out will return. Not fast, but always exact. That is why the seal of 777 appears in your life like the rhythm of heaven. This number is not a good omen for those who only want pleasant words. It is a signal for souls entering a season of awakening, where every layer of cover is pulled down like a curtain with nothing left to hold on to. 777 does not come to comfort you that you were right. It comes to remind you that you have walked through what needed to be walked through. And now the light must be revealed, not for revenge, but to balance what has been tilted for too long. When you see 777, it is not a promise of success, but a reminder that you no longer need to bow before what does not belong to you. Now, when you look back, you see more clearly than anyone that the ones who hurt you do not collapse because of what they did to you, but because their actions reveal they are living in dishonesty with themselves. The more stories someone builds against another, the thicker the darkness they must hold inside. Eventually it must break, and when it breaks, it does not come for you. It swallows them. That is what you are witnessing now. Not loud, not violently, but a slow collapse like a roof soaked through night after night until one gentle wind is enough to bring it down. You no longer need to hold the old pain. Life has taken it and turned it into proof of what your heart always sensed. That truth does not need your protection. It finds its own way. And when truth finds its way, no lie can stand. Those who once thought they would rejoice when you sank are now sitting in a chaotic room of their own making, unable to understand why everything is falling apart so quickly. But you know because you lived through your part and still stand there shining like a lighthouse that never dimmed. This is only the surface of what is happening in their world. The first cracks have just appeared, and life will reveal many deeper layers, and you, the chosen one, do not need to chase or prove anything. You only need to breathe, step, and let the light do its work within you. What haunts you most is not the pain they caused, but the quiet question you once kept in your heart. Why did they choose you? Why among so many people did their eyes keep drilling into you as if your existence was a reminder of something they refused to face? You once thought it was your fault, that you had done something to make them uncomfortable. But the truth lives far beyond what they could imagine. You made them see themselves, and that was the one thing they could not bear. When a soul stands on the ground of truth, it shines with a light that does not need effort, and that light reveals the dark corners someone has tried to hide for so long. Psalm 25:14 says, "The Lord confides his covenant to those who fear him." This is not only a promise, it is the explanation for what you once could not understand. That covenant lives in your intuition, in the moments you sensed danger while others were still smiling, in the way you saw things no one said aloud, in your ability to see through the masks they wear each day. They noticed this in you very early, sometimes even before you noticed it yourself, and that was exactly what made them afraid. They fear you not because you are stronger in a worldly sense. They fear you because you are real. You do not live by performing. You do not need attention to exist. You do not need validation to know who you are. Meanwhile, they live through the eyes of others. They need applause. They need praise. They need someone to fall so they can stand a little taller. When you appear, everything they believe about themselves begins to shake. You do nothing but breathe, yet that breath reminds them how long they have been running from themselves. They try to break you not because you are weak, but because you are becoming the person they know they will never dare to become. They see ahead a version of you that you have not yet seen, stronger, clearer, brighter, a version with no room for them to control or manipulate. And in that fear, they rush to act, as if shrinking you, pushing you back, or silencing you could stop that version from appearing. But they do not know that version is not in the future. It is already here. It started forming in the very days you thought you were weakest. They saw its outline in you before you did, and that made them panic. While they were busy sowing hatred, you quietly built your life with bricks they never saw. You learned to control your anger, learned to stay silent when misunderstood, learned not to beg anyone to believe you. These lessons came together to form a strength they cannot touch. When they tried to break you, they could only break what was already dead. The truest parts of you live where they cannot reach: depth, patience, intuition, and your honesty with your own soul. If you pay attention, you will see the clear contrast. They operate in the light while you build in the shadows. They perform to be seen while you heal to live. They talk about you when you are not present while you stay silent, even when you hold enough evidence to expose everything. They use noise as a weapon while you use quiet to find direction. And in that quiet, what they fear most begins to grow. Not revenge, not retaliation, but your true essence. That essence does not need their approval. It does not need praise. It does not need support to exist. To souls standing on shaky ground, the true essence of another person is like an unyielding mirror. People do not hate you. They hate the reflection of themselves they see in you. They hate the feeling of being exposed even though you never said a word. They hate that you can stand firm while they try every way to make you waver. You once believed that if you explained they would understand. If you stayed silent, they would stop. If you humbled yourself, they would soften. But they do not respond to truth. They respond to insecurity. And insecurity never appreciates kindness. It only swallows it and demands more. You need to know this. They chose you as a target not because you deserved pain, but because you do not belong to the space they stand in. You live at a different energy level, a different frequency, and anyone trying to keep you in their familiar frequency will feel you as a threat, not because you harm them, but because your presence exposes what they have not healed. Psalm 25:14 appears in your life like a key that opens the door to your true space. The covenant it speaks of is not a covenant that you will never be harmed. It is a covenant that what harms you will not win. You may be shaken, but not broken. You may be wounded, but not lose your light. You may be placed into the wrong story, but truth will always find its way back to you. That is why they see you more clearly than you see yourself. The chosen rarely recognize they are chosen until they are placed into situations that force them to see. Their resistance is not your failure. It is evidence that you are stepping out of a version you no longer belong to. And with every step you take forward, their world shrinks. With every moment you heal, the power they think they have dissolves. With every time you stand tall, their shadow grows smaller. And now, as you look back, you understand they were never aiming at you. They were aiming at what they fear becoming. But that does not change the truth that you are the one carrying light into their dark room. When light appears, darkness always reacts wildly before it fades. You are witnessing that reaction. You are not the cause. You are simply the truth they can no longer escape. The stillness in your life was once deeply misunderstood. They thought that silence was weakness, defeat, a sign that you did not know how to fight back. But what is happening now shows they were reading the wrong book from the very first page. Your silence was never surrender. It was the strongest declaration that you do not need noise to protect yourself. And that silence is becoming the loudest echo in their lives. That is what confuses them. You did not strike back, yet they have fallen into a battle with the very things they once sowed. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." That verse is not an invitation to retreat. It is a reminder that there are moments when you only need to stand and trust that truth does not require shouting to win. You are silent not because you lack a voice, but because you refuse to use your voice the way they do. Loud, rushed, full of performance. While they shout to be seen, you stand still to be understood by the one who sees your heart. And in that stillness, every truth begins to rise and return to those who once turned your pain into their stage. There is a moment you remember clearly. When you stumbled, they smiled a little too wide and a little too long. They told your story as if it were theirs. They twisted your pain into entertainment, repeating it in rooms you never walked into, using your struggle as material to make themselves interesting in the eyes of others. They sat in the front row when you were struggling, watching you like a performance instead of a person. They believed the spotlight would always follow them as long as they kept telling stories about you. But they never noticed that a stage only stays lit as long as the story stays true. And the moment you stood up, every line they crafted began to lose its shine. Now the stage they loved is empty. No more laughter, no more audience, no one eager to ask them what happened to you next. They stand in that space with trembling hands, as if unsure what to do without using your story to feed their ego. That emptiness is not ordinary quiet. It is a silence that demands truth to speak. It is the moment they realize no one needs the story they once clung to in order to feel relevant. This is when your silence becomes louder than all the noise they ever made. You do not need to say anything. You only need to continue walking. Every step you take echoes the reminder that they no longer control how others see you. When you rose, they lost the role they wrote for themselves. They did not just lose an audience. They lost status. They lost the power to define you. And for someone who survives on attention, that loss is a deeper fall than any fall they once wished upon you. Something interesting is happening in the energy around you, and you feel it more clearly with each passing day. The number 777 appears more often, not as an empty symbol of luck, but as a confirmation that you are crossing a threshold of awakening. This awakening does not come to place you on a pedestal, but to separate you from spaces that once tried to shrink you. When 777 appears, it is saying that the light is shifting. It is saying that no one can stand on your pain anymore, because that pain has become the foundation you rise from. You walked through that difficult season without raising your voice, and now your silence is leaving them directionless. They keep looking for reasons why their lives no longer move smoothly, why their relationships feel loose, why their humor no longer makes anyone laugh, why the weight of their words grows thinner. But they do not realize that no one is watching their performance anymore, because the truth they tried to hide under the rug has surfaced on its own without anyone lifting it. While they are confused, you grow lighter in ways you never expected. Peace returns to you not through revenge, but through releasing everything that did not belong to you. There is a path only those who have been broken understand. When you rise, you do not carry the old fragments with you. You leave them where they belong as proof that you once lived, once hurt, and once overcame. And because you do not carry them, you walk lighter, brighter, clearer. That clarity is the very thing that chokes those who once fed their ego on your pain. If you feel this touching your soul, if you have ever risen without needing to explain yourself, you can leave a word to strengthen others reading with you. And if you want to stay in a space where true stories are told with light instead of noise, you can follow as a way of standing alongside the souls, learning to walk through the dark. No pressure, no loud invitation. Simply let your heart nod if it feels right. Because everything you are seeing now is only the first layer of the reversal. There is much more you will witness as life continues to let truth do its work. And you, the chosen one, only need to keep standing tall, because your silence is speaking louder than anything they ever used to pull you down. There is something becoming obvious in their lives that they do not dare to face. They never wanted you to simply stumble. They wanted you to shrink. They wanted you to curl up before the crowd, to bow your head so they could stand taller, to be weak so they could feel strong. They did not need to win. They only needed you to lose. They did not need to rise. They only needed you to step back. But what they never calculated is that when a person has tasted enough humiliation, enough doubt, enough silence twisted into weakness, that person will rise in a way no one can control. And the moment you rose, they began to shrink in ways they cannot stop. Psalm 118:6 says, "The Lord is with me, I will not fear." That verse carried you through the days when the voices of others felt heavier than stone. Through the mornings when you no longer believed in yourself. Through the nights when you had to use your whole heart to remind yourself that you still had worth. What lifted you was not pride. It was not the desire to prove anything. It was simply that something inside you refused to die. A small but stubborn flame that kept burning, kept shining, even when someone tried to smother it with sarcasm or cold stares. That flame does not belong to them. It does not hear their commands. It does not lie in the hands of those who want you small so they can feel big. When you stepped out of the dark place they pushed you into, the light shone not only on you, but on them. And that light does not negotiate. It exposes every layer they once hid behind. The forced smile, the borrowed wisdom, the polished image they used as a mask. They once believed they could define you with a few stories they told, a few rumors they threw into the wind. But when you returned stronger, clearer, more peaceful, their words twisted and no longer fit the reality. They tried to cover you with darkness, but ended up making your light stand out even more. And that light made them shrink, like something left too long under the sun. When you were weak, they felt they had a place to stand. When you were silent, they felt they had room to speak. But when you became steady, they no longer knew where to put themselves. They were so used to your hurt that your peace became a threat. They were so used to the trembling version of you that the upright version made them uneasy. They believed that making you look small would make them appear bigger. But now, when you walk into a room with a calmness they cannot imitate, the cracks in them show like fractures on an old mirror. The words they once spoke about you now stand as evidence against them. The stories they once crafted to lower you now follow them like a shadow they cannot escape. You do not need to argue. You do not need to explain. You only need to live. And your life, the peace in your steps, the clarity in your eyes, the strength that does not need display, all of it is becoming proof that what they built has collapsed. What makes them shrink is not your loud return. It is the way you do not need to be loud. You do not compete. You do not defend. You do not demand that anyone sees you differently. And that lack of demand steals their power. A person who survives on applause falls apart when no one is watching. A person who survives on control trembles when there is no one left to control. A person who survives by standing on your pain has nowhere to stand when your pain is gone. They begin to feel everything around them tightening. The relationships that once followed their lead now keep a distance. The faces that once believed them now look with caution. No one says it aloud, but they feel the shift. Not because they suddenly became worse, but because your return forces everyone to see the truth they once ignored. The brighter you become, the more unstable their ground feels. The calmer you are, the more their tension shows. They try to rebuild the image that once earned them attention, but that image now fits like a shirt too small, ready to tear with every movement. They shrink because your light leaves them no place to hide. They shrink because you no longer hold the role they needed to elevate their story. They shrink because the world is beginning to see you with new eyes. And in those eyes, they are no longer the person they claim to be. They shrink because truth no longer stands on their side, no matter how tightly they try to pull it back. The strange thing is, you never wanted this. You never asked for them to hurt the way you once hurt. You never wished for them to fall. You only wanted peace. But your peace has become the wind that blows away their disguise. It is not you who makes them small. It is truth returning to its place. You are not fighting to defeat them. You are rising so you do not lose yourself. And when you rise, everything that relied on your fallen version collapses on its own. In this moment, if you wonder why life works this way, perhaps the answer lies in the feeling growing inside you. The sense that light does not judge by noise, but by clarity. When you become clear, everything that does not belong to you quietly leaves. Even those who once felt certain they could control you forever. They shrink not because you are stronger, but because you are truer. And truth is always larger than any stage people build for themselves. What they are experiencing now is not an accident, not a streak of random misfortune. It is the exact result of every arrow they once raised and aimed at you. What shocks them most is not that life strikes back, but that it strikes in a way painfully familiar, in the very shape, pace, and weight of what they once wished upon you. They never imagined that what they sent out would find its way home. returning to its true owner. They thought you would be the destination. But energy did not choose you. It recognized its source, and now it refuses to leave their lives. They once believed they were clever. They smiled while cutting. They used soft words as weapons. They spread confusion through half-questions, vague rumors, and stories painted as concern. They were not clumsy. They calculated. They crafted situations that would cause you to be misunderstood without leaving any trace. They used politeness as a mask for darker intentions. And every time they succeeded in hurting you, they felt smarter. They did not know that every act was recorded in a space no explanation could erase. Now, as everything begins to unravel, they cannot find anything to hold on to. Work no longer flows. Relationships that once aligned now sag. Doors that used to open now close in their faces. They call it bad luck. But you know better. It is the force returning exactly what they sent out. They are walking on a path paved with the very stones they once threw at you. Every step they take reminds them that no one can escape the truth of their own behavior. Not forever. There is a kind of fear they are bearing now. A fear no one sees, but one that eats from within. By day, they still smile, still speak politely, still pretend to be fine. But at night, when there is no audience left to perform for, their mind becomes the stage where the truth stands fully exposed. They hear their own words again, the whispers, the twists, the stories they shaped to paint you as the villain. And the most terrifying part is not the memory itself, but the recognition that what is happening now is a reflection. They do not say it, but they know. The arrows they once shot do not explode in one dramatic moment. They land slowly and steadily, layer by layer. They cannot simply apologize and expect everything to stop. They cannot avoid it by staying quiet. They cannot run to a new crowd to rebuild an image, because the problem is not the people around them. It is inside them. The energy they once used to aim at you now settles in their lives like an uninvited guest that does not leave and does not step back. You do not need to remind them of anything. They know. They know very clearly, and that is what keeps them awake at night. Because the greatest punishment is not what happens outside, but what you cannot escape inside. They try to cling to old habits, old conversations, old alliances that once aided them, but the sad truth for them is that those same people now see the truth. No one echoes their story anymore. No one wants to stand beside what is visibly cracking. The laughter that once supported them when they talked about you has gone silent, and that silence shakes them more than any criticism could. Meanwhile, you walk as someone freed from a heavy burden. You do not push anyone down. You do not need to prove you were right. You do not run to correct misunderstandings. The peace in you is doing that work without a single word, and what frightens them most is your lack of reaction. If you reacted, they would have something to hold on to. If you grew angry, they could continue their old script. But when you stay silent and move forward, they lose the opponent they need to hide behind. They must face themselves, and that is something they were never prepared for. They cannot understand why the things they once did are returning with such force. Because in their mind, every action was minor, nothing big, nothing serious. But what they do not see is that every small action held the intention to harm you. A small rumor, a gentle twist of the story, a tiny shift of words. Each drop seemed small, but each drop carried poison. And now those drops have become a river, and that river is carrying them in the direction they once wished for you. The most beautiful part of all this is that you do not have to dirty your hands. You do not have to pick up any pieces they dropped. You do not have to stand as witness to what is unfolding in their lives. You only need to live, breathe, and keep moving. Life handles the rest. And that is what they cannot bear. You do not strike them. yet they fall. You do not touch them, yet they are hit by what they themselves created. If you ever wonder why justice sometimes arrives late, look at this truth. Justice wants everything exposed, wants your heart healed before it delivers its verdict. If justice came when you were still angry, you would think you won because you got revenge. But when it comes after peace returns to your soul, you understand that the real victory is not watching someone fall. It is standing strong without needing them to fall. Now, as you look toward their lives, you see that no more words are needed. They are learning the lesson they once forced you to learn. You did not wish for this, but it is happening, and it will not stop until they face themselves with no place left to hide. There is a truth you have seen but never spoken. They did not just observe your pain, they lived off it. Not in a loud or cruel way, not with open laughter in front of others, but with the small, hidden satisfaction they swallowed every time you struggled. You once could not believe anyone could grow by standing on someone else's collapse. But the truth is, some souls are so weak, they can only feel taller when someone else bends. And you, though unwilling, became the ruler they used to measure their false sense of worth. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted." Even when you did not feel it during your suffering, that promise held steady over every wound you carried. When you fell to the ground, they stood on it without needing to climb. When you broke, they felt whole. When you cried, they felt unseen in their own misery. They never cared how deeply you were hurting. They only cared whether your pain made them look better in the eyes of others. That is the hardest truth to face when you look back. They never wished you would lose everything. They only wished you would never surpass them. But when you began to heal, when your hands stopped trembling, when your heart stopped aching every morning, when your breath grew steady, they understood something you did not yet know. If you rise, they lose their power. You never realized that the same eyes watching you were watching to see whether you were getting stronger. You never knew the small questions they asked were designed to test whether you were still as fragile as the last time they saw you. They monitored your pain the way people monitor a water source in a drought, because your weakness was the place where their ego felt safe. But the drought does not last forever. One day you began to change in steps too small for anyone to notice, through actions done quietly, through conversations you had with yourself in the dark. You learned not to blame yourself. You learned not to justify other people's behavior. You learned to sit with your pain instead of running from it. And piece by piece you rebuilt yourself with a gentleness they never believed you possessed. They assumed someone like you would break forever, fall forever, chase external validation forever. But you chose another road. You chose healing. When you healed, they lost their balance. No one says it aloud, but they feel it clearly. The pain you once carried was the room they hid in to cover their own cracks. When that room disappeared, they had no place to stand. They tried to create new stories, new rumors, new situations to drag you back into your old state. But those tactics no longer work. You do not react. You do not tremble. You do not fall off course. They use the same weapons that once pierced you. But now every arrow drops harmlessly at your feet, like a stone tossed into deep water. While you grow lighter, they grow heavier. The pain they wished you would bear now sits on their shoulders, not because you returned it, but because they carried it too long without realizing it. As they watch you move forward, they drown in the very feelings they once hoped you would feel. A sense of losing direction, a sense of being left behind, a sense of being replaced by a version of you they can no longer grasp. What hurts them is not your success. It is that you no longer need them to survive. They begin to see themselves in the very place they once threw you into. Alone, unsteady, voiceless, unheard. No one calls their name anymore. No one asks about them anymore. The people who once eagerly listened to their stories about you now fall silent, as if realizing that their joy was built on someone else's suffering. And when that truth bursts open, who would still want to stand beside them, not because they are hated, but because life forces them to learn the lesson they avoided? No one grows from another person's pain without paying a price. Meanwhile, you touch a kind of peace they cannot understand. A peace not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer pulled by the storms they create. You walk through places that once made you choke without feeling the sting. You see their name or hear someone mention them without feeling heavy, not because you forgot, but because you no longer wear that story like a soaked coat on your shoulders. You leave it where it belongs. What they cannot understand is that your healing is not an attack on them. It simply returns you to your rightful place. And when you return to your true position, they are pushed out of a place they never belonged. The place of power in your life. The tighter they try to hold on, the faster it slips away. The more they want you to become the old version of yourself, the farther you walk from the version that fed their ego. And that is why they are stuck. No one is binding them, but they cannot move because they have no identity outside the one built on your pain. They are learning the lesson only life can teach. Anyone who lives off another person's suffering will one day sit at the table they prepared. They are eating the meal they once served you, and no one finds it sweet anymore, not one person. You are different. You move on. You are lighter. You are truer. You no longer carry what is not yours. And because of that, the pain of others no longer has permission to hide in your life. What they never expected is that the moment you began to stand tall was not the moment you were restored. It was the moment they were revealed. They once believed your return only meant you had survived the pain. But your return was like a beam of light slicing through the night, shaking every story they had ever built. You did not need to explain anything. The moment you walked into any room with that peace, the truth stepped forward and testified that their words about you no longer matched the reality people could see. What confuses them most is not that you are succeeding. It is that your success makes no noise. It is not a celebration. It is not you trying to prove anything. It is not a declaration that you have risen above everything. It is the life returning to your face, the calm in your breath, the steadiness in your eyes. You did not come back to reclaim your reputation. You came back to reclaim yourself. And when you did, the words they once scattered drifted awkwardly through a new reality that no longer agreed with them. They once believed they had full control over the story about you. In rooms where you were absent, they cast you as the villain, shaping a distorted version of you to make themselves look like the wounded one. But when you appeared again with that clarity, people began to question, not because you argued, not because you defended yourself, but because they could no longer reconcile the description they heard with the person standing right in front of them. They began to wonder, if they were wrong about you, how wrong were they about everything else? Your return did not just change how people saw you, it changed how they saw the person who had spoken about you. Those who once believed them began seeing cracks. Their smiles no longer looked natural. Their explanations no longer flowed. Every time they repeated the old story, the listener's eyes shifted. Not because you opposed them, but because the truth in you grew louder than their words. Your existence became the argument they could not refute. They tried to hold on to the old image, to keep their role as the victim in a story they once controlled. But the more they held on, the less convincing it became. The world around them no longer responded the way it used to. People stopped nodding along. The familiar agreement disappeared. Not everyone said it out loud, but everyone could see it. The pieces of their story no longer aligned with the person you had become. They feel this as an invisible threat, not a threat from you, but a threat from the truth your presence now carries. That truth stands between them and everyone else like a clear pane of glass, reflecting back what they once hid behind their smile. When you stepped into your life with a new posture, they were forced to face the reality that their story was never the truth. It was only a costume they placed on you to cover the tears in themselves. Nothing is more frightening to them than people beginning to see their real nature. They lived by shaping perceptions, by directing attention. But now no one asks them about you anymore. No one needs them to confirm anything. People look directly at you, hear your real voice, sense the growth in you, and realize that the image they were once given was only a product of insecurity. With every day you live in your truth, another piece of their mask falls away. What they cannot bear is that this truth does not shout. It does not argue. It does not demand belief. It simply stands there, natural and undeniable. They cannot accuse you of exposing them. You are not exposing anyone. You are simply living. And that is what confuses them most. They do not know how to fight someone who does not fight back. They cannot control someone who is not trying to reclaim anything from them. They cannot compete with peace, because peace does not compete. You have become living evidence of what they tried hardest to hide, that they were wrong. Not wrong in your eyes, but wrong in the stories they told others, wrong in the way they behaved, wrong in the power they thought they had, wrong in the pride they built on sand. You did not come to reveal them, but the light in you forces them to see that nothing they built can stand now that you are no longer beneath them. As you move forward, they feel themselves shrinking like a small object in a room that keeps expanding. The room is not changing. You are as you grow. Their role in your life becomes smaller, and when their role becomes small, they lose the only power they ever held. They struggle to face this truth. No one wants to admit they stood tall only because someone else was held down, but that is exactly what they are confronting now, day by day, hour by hour. You do not need to say anything for this truth to continue unfolding. Every day you choose to live as someone who has walked through fire without burning. The truth steps forward. Every time you smile without bitterness, they hear a soft crack in the story they once performed. Every time you stand in your rightful place, they are pushed out of the place they never belonged. And now, as your light fills the space they once hid in, they understand that your return was not a blow against them. It was a reminder that no one can build their reputation on someone else's collapse without paying a price. What they never anticipated is that the moment you began to stand tall was not the moment you were restored. It was the moment their entire empire began to collapse. They had built something they believed was solid, but the foundation of it was made from the broken pieces of who you used to be. They did not understand that when you were hurting, you unknowingly became the soft ground they stood on. They used the chaos in your story to distract from the emptiness in their own. They used your weakness as the pillar that made them look strong. They built an image of dignity by using you as the contrast. Only when you healed did they see that empire was never theirs to claim. Psalm 62:6 says, "He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will not be shaken." That promise stood like a pillar in every moment you felt you had nothing left to hold. When people turned away, when your story was twisted, when you stood alone in silence, that promise became the rock beneath your feet. What they never knew is that while they enjoyed their elevated position built on your pain, you were quietly building a foundation no one could steal. And that foundation is now the force causing every structure they built to crumble layer by layer. The day you stopped falling was the day they started trembling. They never accounted for the fact that your rising would directly weaken the role they had assigned themselves. When you healed, the part they had cast themselves in, the wise one, the concerned one, The one who claimed to know the real you began to lose power. No one believed their old stories anymore when they saw the person standing before them now. They repeated the same lines, but the sound was empty. People listened, but it no longer made sense. Not because they were choosing your side, but because the truth in you was louder than their words. They feel the collapse not through a sudden crash, but through quiet shifts. Respect around them fades. Conversations shorten. Eyes no longer light up when they speak. Everything they once controlled slips through their fingers and they do not know what to grab. Because what they stood on was not truth, but a borrowed story from your pain. When you grew lighter, that story lost its weight. When you grew stronger, it lost its meaning. There are moments when they try to rebuild the old image, to find new audiences, to retell the story about you the way they once did. But each attempt meets a strange silence. No one sees you in their description anymore. No one is interested in a script that is too old. And worse, no one wants to listen to a story told by someone whose lack of authenticity is becoming more visible each day. They stand in the room like an actor who shows up to a performance where the lights never turn on, the audience never arrives, and the costume no longer fits the shape of their body. In that confusion, they cling to the last fragments of their empire. But those fragments were never stable because they were never real. Any relationship they gained from it, any advantage they built from it, now trembles because none of it had truth as its root. They are not collapsing because you won. They are collapsing because the ground they used to stand on no longer exists. You removed the pain they once leaned on, and without it, they fall into the space where they must rely on their true nature. Some people cannot stand when they have no one left to stand on. That is the reality they are confronting. What hurts them more than any visible loss is the realization that no one believes them anymore. Not because you said anything, but because what they built was too fragile to survive when truth entered the room. When you walk in with your light, no explanation is needed. You stand there, and that is enough. They stand there, and the emptiness behind them becomes clear. No one to support them, no words to rely on, no role left to play. Through all of this, you walk forward as someone who has finally stepped onto ground that truly belongs to you. You do not need to make anyone fall to stand tall. You only need to reclaim what was always yours. And when you reclaim it, they lose the foundation they stole. When you reclaim your voice, they lose their story. When you stand in the place your soul was always meant to inhabit, they are pushed out of the place they never belonged. You do not watch their collapse with satisfaction. Deep down, you understand that what they are facing is a natural consequence. Not a curse, not revenge. It is the balancing motion of life. What is built on sand cannot stand when the tide shifts. And your healing is that tide. It does not roar. It does not strike with violence. It simply withdraws what never belonged to them. And when the water pulls back, the foundation is exposed, and the truth can no longer be denied. If there is anything worth remembering, it is this. You did not take anything from them. You only reclaimed your own, your peace, your real story, your light. These were always yours. They simply never had the right to hold them. And when you took them back, they were left empty-handed. That emptiness is what made their world collapse, because they had nothing of their own to stand on. Now, as their empire turns to dust, you understand this is not an ending. It is the moment they must face themselves without wearing your story as their cloak. And you, the chosen one, do not need to pick up any brick that has fallen. You are walking on a road built from a foundation that is truly yours, where the light is not borrowed, where truth does not need performance, and where no one will ever stand tall again by making you small. There is something happening in their life right now that they cannot name. Yet it follows them like a tightening breath every time they think of you. It does not come from anyone else. It does not come from outside. It does not come from curses or resentment. It comes from the seeds they once planted in the dark. Believing no one knew, no one saw, no one recorded. They planted them with words, with attitudes, with tiny twists of the story so small they believed they were harmless. But every seed planted with a dark intention remembers. It stays in the soil, silent, waiting for its season, and now, in its season, it rises in the garden they never wanted to tend. They thought they buried you, buried your voice, your image, your presence under the shadows they created. But the truth is they only buried themselves. What they pushed away was not you, but the honest part of themselves they refused to face. When they twisted your story, they twisted their ability to see their own heart. When they lowered you, they lowered the last good piece in them that still remained. And now what rises is not the fall they wanted for you, but the truth they crafted for themselves. What frightens them most is not that you are rising. What shakes them is that every step you take reveals another piece of truth they can no longer hide behind explanations, behind forced sadness, or behind the trembling performance they once used to gather sympathy. When you stood up, you became a mirror, and they, whether they want it or not, whether they look away or not, still see themselves in it. Not the beautiful image they tried to perform, but their real reflection. The one who planted, who harmed, who hid, who acted, who wanted you small so they could feel big. As the seeds they planted begin to grow, their life becomes a dense garden of tangled vines. In every relationship, they feel a rising uneasiness they refuse to name. They do not know why people drift away, but deep down they know. They do not know why conversations fall apart, but deep down they understand. No one wants to enter a garden where the plants grow out of hidden shame. No one wants to stand beside someone who built themselves on another person's hurt. When bad seeds sprout, truth sprouts with them, and truth is something they cannot uproot with a shallow apology. You walk through all of this as someone who owes nothing, because you know you were never the one who planted these seeds. You were only pulled into their darkness for a season, but you never belonged to that darkness. They thought you would carry their seeds in your heart, that you would live beneath the branches grown from their rumors and quiet cruelty. But you did not. You left their seeds in their soil, and by the time they bloomed, you were already too far away for the roots to reach you. You may have wondered why their world only now begins to crack. Why not sooner? Why did life allow them to go so far before circling back? But you did not know that the timing was intentional. If everything came too early, they would blame circumstances. If it came when you were still hurting, they would blame you. But now, with you healed, steady, at peace, no longer carrying their story, the truth cannot be credited to you. It stands alone as its own witness. They are confronting themselves. In their sleepless nights, they no longer search for you to blame. They search the stories they once crafted and realize none of them are strong enough to justify the reality unfolding now. Every time they close their eyes, the moments they struck you with soft words return like a film that will not stop playing. In that silence, they finally understand that what is happening is not punishment, but the full reflection of what they once sent out. They do not say it to anyone, but they feel the isolation closing in, not because people hate them, but because people have seen what they tried to hide. People do not bond with those who rise on someone else's pain. People do not trust those who shift their story depending on who is listening. And people do not stay beside someone who plants harmful seeds and refuses to acknowledge them. Through all of this, you shine even more in a way you never tried to achieve. You are not becoming a saint. You are not becoming flawless. You are becoming real. and that truth becomes your light. Light does not force anyone to walk into it, but it exposes every shadow that thought it was safe. That is why every quiet victory you experience, even the small ones, thickens the darkness within them, because they can no longer use you as the reason to avoid themselves. They are living in their own garden now, watching what they planted grow, knowing no one else put their hands in that soil. And you, after everything, simply walk away from that garden without looking back, without explaining, without cleaning up, without checking how they survive among the vines. Life is teaching them the lesson you learned long ago. Every seed sprouts, good or bad, and no one can force a beautiful harvest when the seeds were planted with the wrong intention. You do not need to say a single word. Life has spoken for you already, and they, whether they want to or not, are finally having to listen. The turning point was never the moment they fell. It was the moment you realized you no longer needed their fall in order to stand. That was when life closed every old chapter and opened a new one for you. Not because you defeated them, but because you no longer belonged to the space where they once held you. The shift did not arrive with a thunderous sound. It arrived as a feeling inside you, light, open, bright, as if your breath finally stopped carrying the scent of the old battle. You are no longer running. You are no longer afraid. You no longer wait for anyone to see you. You stand in your own light, the very light you missed for years because someone else once covered it. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans for peace and not disaster, to give you a future and a hope." You did not hear that verse with your ears. You heard it with your whole being, because it matches every step you have just walked. In the days you were misunderstood, in the nights you were abandoned, in the moments you believed you were a burden, life was never leading you to destruction. It was clearing a path only someone who has shed their old shell can walk. What frightens them now is not punishment. It is your absolute silence. You do not ask them why. You do not blame. You do not demand answers. You do not need apologies. You simply walk forward, and that is how they know this time you are not coming back. You no longer revolve around them. Your strength is no longer tied to the wounds they caused. You step off the stage, leaving them alone with the role they once performed, and now no one is watching. They see you walking away, light, unburdened, without resentment. That hurts them more than 1,000 accusations, because it proves that the power they thought they had was never real. It existed only as long as you stayed, believed, or tried to hold on to what was never yours. But now, as you leave that shadowed space, their power dissolves like smoke, unable to hold its shape. You move toward the future, not like someone who escaped a prison, but like someone entering a land that has carried your name for years. You do not need to mend your reputation. You do not need to run and prove your innocence. You do not need to retell the true version of what happened. Your life now is the story. People no longer see you through their lens. They see you through who you are becoming. Someone who did not break when bent. Someone who did not grow bitter when betrayed. Someone who did not lose their root when pulled from the old soil. The greatest transformation within you is this. You no longer call what happened a failure. You call it by its true name, foundation. A foundation for clarity, a foundation for new choices, a foundation for stepping away from places that did not honor your soul. A foundation for the growth you could never have bought with an easier path. Every tear you once shed is now the shine in your eyes when you look at the future. Every fall that once shook you now becomes your springboard. While you change, they are stuck in a story they can no longer continue writing. The silence you leave behind becomes the mirror that reflects what they once did. Not for you to look back, but for them to be unable to run. They must face the fear they always carried, that you are no longer part of the story they told. You are no longer the foundation they stood on, no longer the reference point they used to measure themselves. You have stepped out of that page, and you now walk like someone who knows exactly where they belong. You are not rushing. You are not desperate. You are not trying to prove anything. The gentleness in you is the sign of someone who found their true self among the ruins. You look back at the past not with sadness, but with gratitude. Gratitude that it did not kill you. Gratitude that it could not keep you. Gratitude that it pushed you to the point where you had to choose, to live as before or to live as your real self. You chose your real self, and that is why you have become someone they will never control again. In that inner peace, you realize a truth. No one on earth can block the path of a soul meant to stand. No one can bring down someone designed to rise. No one can steal the journey of a heart that knows how to return to itself. And the most beautiful part is you do not need to slam the old door shut in anger. It closed on its own the moment you walked through it with a peace they cannot touch. If ever you need to take a deep breath and look back at it all, remember this. You did not just survive. You stepped into the very chapter written for you long ago. And if you feel a number whispering inside you, any number that has walked with you on this journey, let it become your personal mark, a way to acknowledge that you passed through fire without losing your soul. If that number calls your name, you can share it as a testament that you are ready to step into the new cycle, the cycle of truth, of light, of your own becoming. And now the story no longer revolves around them. It revolves around you, the one who rose without needing anyone else to fall.
Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.